There's been a lot of buzz in Bollywood, and it's kind of breaking down into insider versus outsider business. Let's get into it.
Listen up, it's jazz.
What is up, you guys? Welcome back to the Hot Chai Pod, a podcast where we serve all of that sizzling Bollywood tea. I'm your host, Jazz, and yes, we are back. It has been a few weeks that we've been off, and I promise no more. We need to be back on a schedule, and by we, I mean me, your director, host, producer of this entire show. So I'm sorry, I have been a little bit laggy because of work and stuff. But we have been keeping live on the Hot Chai Pod Instagram. If you're not following, follow Instagram at Hot Chai Pod, because we have our fashion polls. You'll see my kind of comments and gossip in real time and lots of other interesting happenings. So actually, we'll probably get into some of that later in the episode. So why did we want to cover an insider versus outsider kind of topic today? Well, there have been some rumblings over the past few weeks, right? So we're going to get into some of that goss now, but know that next week we will be covering all of the Ken fashion. And unfortunately, I tried to wait it out, but Aishwarya Rai's looks are not until probably tomorrow and the next day. So that will be included in the roundup that comes up next week. So stay tuned for that because we got a lot to say, and the teacups actually have a lot to say. We do have some very boiling hot chai written in by one of you teacups. Of course, you guys should send in blinds if you have any, sightings or, tea or insider information. Go ahead, email hotchaipod@gmail.com. All of your submissions are anonymous. And actually, in the case of this tea, this is about an outsider. So I'm going to hint at it a little bit, and I will debate how we're going to bring this story up in the coming weeks, because I don't really know the best way to do it without, one, giving away the identity of the person who submitted it, and two, verifying some checks and balances and seeing how we work it into an episode. But just know this is about an outsider guy, one, and two, it kind of talks about some of the smoke and mirrors that go into trying to make it in this industry. Of course, some of that is, the age-old lying about your age and you keep shaving off a few years. There's rumors that even Katrina Kaif has done that, has had a 27th birthday a few times, and right? So it's kind of harder to track, I guess, than an insider or a Nepo, because you kind of know when they are born because of their parents. So I think that's interesting. So one, this outsider's lying about his age. Two, there's a little bit of a fake it till you make it. Are they taking on huge credit card debt? Are they living in places that they can't afford just to kind of, have this perception of success or be around the right people? What does it take, when you come from a middle class family? Three, who do these outsiders sometimes latch onto on the inside to get ahead, right? And how do they make the most of the opportunities that they can get? And we can't really blame these people for being scrappy, right? And trying to connect and get a foot in the door. But I think it's worth mentioning. And I know I'm being really cryptic, but by latching on to some of these insiders or Nepo girls in this case, or a successful rising star, do they then drop all their other prospects or, drop the girlfriend back home? And it's actually kind of interesting because it does mirror what happens here in Hollywood too, right? Where you might have a struggling actor boyfriend and then suddenly he drops you because he wants to, sleep with his co-star who's more famous. They want to make like a PR brand of it. They want to be in more like shows and movies and press together, and therefore get more famous. And so your old life kind of gets thrown to the side because it's really not as exciting anymore. Now, with these hints, I don't know if you would know who I'm talking about, but we will slowly start to reveal who this is, like I said, in good time. So the next topic is around Babil Khan, and I don't even actually want to say it's hot chai because I think it's a little inappropriate, but it has been a story for a few weeks. So Babil Khan is Irfan Khan, the late Irfan Khan's son. He was recently in a movie called Logout that went straight to Z5, but I actually watched it. I'm not going to super review it here, except to say that I thought it was pretty interesting. It's kind of about an influencer whose phone gets stolen / hacked, and, the way that we're kind of addicted to our phones and attention, and and what people are willing to do for fame, right? So it's a very relevant issue, and Babil basically plays this influencer. So a couple weeks ago, Babil Khan went on Instagram Live, and he was clearly having, some sort of mental health break or issue. He was really struggling and crying, and he kind of called out a few names: Ananya Pandey, Siddhant Chautervedi, Adarsh Gaurav. He said Arjun Singh, we're reporting it as Arjit Singh. Oh, and Raghav Juyal. Seemed a little like he was calling these people out, but it also wasn't clear. He was saying, Bollywood's so fake, everyone's so fake and awful, basically. By the morning, his PR team had kind of put out a statement, his mental health's not great, he apologizes. Ananya Pandey puts out a story in support of him, Siddhant Chautervedi, all these people. And so the buzz was online like, oh, all these people have teamed up to, kind of bully Babil Khan. It's not fair. They need to be supportive. He's obviously calling them out. They've made him suffer. And I think it brought back a lot of flashbacks to Sushant Singh Rajput and, how people felt he was treated as an outsider. And it kind of brought up this debate of, oh, there's this inner circle and these people get all these opportunities and he's struggling on the outside. And while we, of course, wish Babil Khan well, and he's actually stepped away from a movie that he was going to do, I think I had mixed reactions to this as it happened. Because on one hand, of course, we know that in Bollywood, there are cliques and the in circle and who you have to network with, and everyone else gets, thrown to the wolves and gets the scraps of films and songs and whatever. So we know that that is true. But people were also kind of doubling down and comparing Babil Khan to Sushant Singh Rajput. And I think that is an unfair comparison because Babil Khan is a Nepo kid. I think we automatically give grace to someone like Babil Khan because we so respect, his late father, Irfan Khan's work. I think it's the same reaction people had to Junaid Khan when they saw him come out is, oh, we like him. He's a serious actor because he's Amir Khan's son. And, we haven't maybe seen them in the limelight as much as some of the other Nepo kids. But, Babil Khan nonetheless is a Nepo kid. And it does beg the question, right? Yeah, he could be excluded from certain social circles or not getting the kind of work that he feels he deserves. But at the same time, does he deserve it? At the end of the day, we actually have to hold some of these Nepo kids to the same standard as outsiders and ask, would Babil Khan be getting work if he were not Irfan Khan's son? I think that's an interesting question to ask. After having watched him in Logout, I feel like he did a fine job, but I don't know that he would have been cast again if he were not a known name. And so he's calling out, Ananya Pandey, sure, she's a Nepo kid. Siddhant Chautervedi, though, he's not. And Adarsh Gaurav, I don't think he is either. Arjit Singh, I think these people are all related to that movie Kho Gaye Hum Kahan, which kind of makes me wonder, did he audition for it and not get cast? Or, what transpired there? It just seemed like too much of a coincidence. The other consideration, but I think we have to take everything with a grain of salt. This person was obviously having a very weak moment and struggling. Just because they said something, it doesn't mean we all have to take it as Bible and put all these hateful comments and accuse all these people of things that we have no idea about, right? To say these people are bullying him just off of one Instagram Live video, I'm not super sure that it's a good idea. I think one of the big takeaways for me coming out of this, and I think I've said this on a previous episode, is that the male Nepo kids are treated much better than the female Nepo kids. I think there's more excitement or hype or grace given to them. And they're not torn down for their looks as easily. I mean, if we compare Babil Khan's kind of reception and the interest in him versus how people reacted to Suhana Khan before they even saw her act in the Archies, I think it's night and day. I just don't think people would be giving the same grace if Shanaya Kapoor went on a live and she had a mental breakdown and, named a bunch of insiders and outsiders. I think people would be like, you don't deserve to be here, and just make fun of her and say, oh, you should not be an actress at all. And I just don't see that that's the reaction that some of the male Nepo stars get. So just something for us to keep in mind, and even for me to keep in mind as we talk about these issues. But I do think that there is a difference in how people who are insiders to the industry can kind of operate and get the press on their side, and paparazzi sightings and these paid social media bots that we've talked about. And I think that that is well utilized by some of these insiders if you pay attention very closely. And recently I was thinking about this because I saw Deepika Padukone gave an interview finally post-baby, I think for Marie Claire. And in the interview, and I recommend reading it if you haven't, it was actually very interesting. 2 tidbits. She mentioned a story about a director wanting to meet with her at her house, and it didn't work with Deepika's schedule with the baby. And the director said, like, oh, it seems like she's taking motherhood very seriously. As though, how else are you supposed to take it, right? Anyways, I wish I knew who the director was. If you have thoughts, comment them below. And the second thing was very subtle, but I thought it was actually tea, is that Deepika said, Ranveer doesn't want us talking too much about the baby and the habits and what we're doing and kind of like our personal stuff around there. He wants us to keep it extremely private. And actually, she says, like, she may have spoken already too much about it. And some people thought, oh, they just want to keep their family life really private. But I actually thought the undertone of that was they don't want anyone to be able to use this against them to sling mud in the media and kind of paint stories and be able to latch on to something. So for instance, I don't know this obviously, but if Deepika said, oh, I've been struggling with, such and such with the baby, there could be a host of nasty articles that are written about her and comparing her to like all the times that Alia was able to do this with Raha versus Deepika with Dua kind of thing. If you think that wouldn't happen and you think I'm being paranoid per usual, I encourage you to take a look at some of these headlines. I might even put some up here so you can get a sense of the fact that this happens all the time. And it is planted media. This is curated content. This is usually pushed from a star's PR person to be like, put a hit out like this, pay a story like this so that they can take down someone that they perceive as a threat in the industry. And if you don't believe me, read the Al Jazeera article that came out with all of this like dirty PR business, okay? It's my opinion! Speaking of the queen of PRs.
We used to go out at night, he's like, wipe that off. Wipe that off because he loves the natural.
So Miss Alia Bhatt Kapoor was supposed to be going to Cannes this year as a L'Oreal ambassador. A host of other people are there. Ranveer Kapoor is there, Ishan Khater, but we will get into that next week, as I mentioned. So I actually put up a poll asking if you guys were excited now that Alia Bhatt would be joining, the likes of Aishwarya Rai Bachchan, our longtime Queen of Cannes, and most of you were mostly sad that it was the end of an era, and I think I agree with that. But, there is always a time for change and new faces, and we've seen new faces over the years. So Alia was, all set to make her debut. And of course, there were heightened tensions between the countries and within India. And people were, doing test drills and there were blackouts and stuff. So a lot of the stars were putting out messages about the war stuff, which actually most of you teacups said that you would prefer that they didn't because you didn't like that either side, actors from either side were promoting violence and encouraging war, which I can understand because it, kind of can throw off your view of an actor and sometimes you just want to focus on their art. But a lot of people do not want to just focus on the art. And so some people were coming after Alia for not, speaking out enough, or maybe because her mom started some sort of petition. Alia then puts out a statement saying, actually, I'm standing with my country, I'm standing with my people, and I will not be going to Cannes. It's like important for me to be here in India. And I thought it was a weird move. So I put out a poll for you guys, and most of you agreed that it was either PR or it was something else, and it was not some like genuine show of patriotism. I don't think any of us buy that. Now, what does this mean? From a PR standpoint, she could be trying to do like some damage control with people who were going after her or her mom or whatever. The fact that I think she's a British citizen, and so people were just kind of lobbing these random attacks. Aside from that, she may have just thought this is a good opportunity for me to be back in the limelight, do something different, not just be at Cannes. My hunch is that something else came up and she used this as like a cover or an excuse for why she's not going. What that excuse is, I don't know, because I would think that she would have contractual obligations with L'Oreal to show up and walk the carpet for those couple days, like Aishwarya Rai is doing. So I was like, is this a breach of contract? Did she suddenly get dropped from this? It didn't make any sense because she just did an ad with L'Oreal and like her mimic, that girl Chandani Mimic on Instagram, not too long ago. There were whispers that people already knew Alia's camp was saying this before. They saw it on Twitter. So this isn't a surprise. And I want you to know, those are not like insider accounts or gossip, probably the fan accounts that these PR teams run, right? That is not just randomly somebody heard that Alia's not going to Cannes, unless it's just a coincidence. So some people speculated it's because of the dress code rules at Cannes that came out, no naked dresses, no super voluminous gowns. I don't think that's it. I don't think that they are getting these kind of guidelines super last minute, but you never know. But for some reason, I don't trust it. I think the optics are weird. And then, of course, things have died down. So then there was the question of, will she reverse course and just kind of show up? Which would be really weird. And then, of course, now there's been more paparazzi shots of her and Ranveer and stuff. And just make no mistake, those are planned. But how does that fit into this insider-outsider thing? And why this is relevant? To be able to just not go to Cannes, to be able to not be scared of being dropped by L'Oreal, as an ambassador or breach your contract or whatever may have happened. To be able to do that is a huge privilege in and of itself. And I don't think any outsider actress could have done the same thing without repercussions, because these opportunities are so hard fought for them to get, right? I don't think Tripti Dimri can just randomly breach her contract with Clinique without repercussions. One, they need the paycheck. They don't have the generational wealth to back them up. And two, they need that kind of attention that they don't otherwise get because they don't have these powerhouse PRs behind them. So it's just something to think about, the immense amount of, subtle privilege to be able to take a stand like that and say, oh, for my country, I won't do this. Well, you're lucky, because that newcomer actress, Nitanshi, who is in Lapata Ladies, she's at Cannes. I don't think she could have said, well, I'm not going to Cannes, right? This is a huge opportunity for her and probably a once in a lifetime. I'm just saying it's an insider privilege. And finally, this week, I know what I said earlier in the episode, I'm going to be a hypocrite because I have to troll Shanaya Kapoor in this new music video. She came out in a music video with Guru Randhawa, and she's dancing. And people are a little divided, right? Because she's been having her PR pitch herself as the new Katrina Kaif, or she looks like a young Katrina Kaif, which she totally does not. But check out our plastic surgery episode on that. The other part of this is, people are like, well, she's a good dancer and she practices her dance on her Instagram. She's not that good of a dancer. And I'm not saying you have to be an amazing dancer to be a Bollywood actress, right? You don't have to be, but maybe don't be in a music video then. And she totally was trolled, and it looks like most of you teacups agreed with that assessment. There was the argument from some commenters that it's just the choreography was not good, and so how could she make it better? But if you actually look at the background dancers, the moves do look a lot better. There's something very unappealing about this dance and trying to be sexy, and people were being mean and saying she just looks like her father's face in a wig. Not okay. I actually think she sometimes does resemble her mom quite a bit, but whatever. It's really not even about that. It's about the fact that, again, would she get this opportunity if she were not an insider and have 3 movies lined up without even debuting? I think we all know the answer to that. And with that, teacups, I leave you. If you enjoyed us being back, feel free to like and share with all your friends. And until we are back, bye.
Listen up, it's jazz.